Hi guys, today we're going to learn how to do coffee enemas. We're going to talk about the prep in the kitchen, then the how-to, and then the cleanup. So first we're going to pour about 16 ounces of distilled water in a pitcher, and we're going to slap that bad boy on the stovetop and bring it up to a boil ASAP. So I'm just going to put that in my saucepan, put a cover on it, and turn the burner up to high. Meanwhile, we're going to get the actual coffee grounds ready. So I'm going to bust out the old spice grinder, coffee grinder here, make sure it's clean, doesn't have, cumin or anything weird in it. And you're going to go ahead and put in the clean coffee. By clean coffee, I mean like the hippy dippiest coffee you can possibly get your hands on. You want it to be mold free, pesticide free, metal free, everything free of everything but coffee, honest to God. For my recipe, I'm going to be making 3 tablespoons of ground coffee. It'll ultimately be a 32-ounce enema, although we only put 16 on the stovetop. You'll see why that is. If you're brand new to coffee enemas, you might want to start with just 1 tablespoon of coffee and then gradually increase to 2 and then to 3. But the full dose for a coffee enema is going to be 3 tablespoons of coffee to 32 ounces of distilled water. And now that that's ready, I'm just going to go ahead and put that in the pan. The water isn't up to a boil yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. Just use your finger or a spoon to scrape out any of the bits that are left behind in the coffee grinder. Go ahead and give it a little bit of a stir, get all of those grounds wet. Grounds. And then we'll go ahead and put the cover back on. In the meantime, I'm going to get out some of the other equipment that I'm going to want, namely a strainer. The one that I have is shaped in a cone shape. That's going to be really handy momentarily. And then we wait. All right, now that the coffee is up to a vigorous boil, I'm going to go ahead and take the lid off, turn on the vent fan for my stove, and set a timer for 5 minutes. Give it a little bit of a stir, get all those grounds off from the edge of the pan there. Make sure they're all in the jacuzzi. And then you could go ahead and drop the heat down a bit because you just want it to boil with the cover off for 5 minutes. So that is the first step once we get the water really heated up. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and we're going to drop the heat down after giving the coffee a bit of a stir. We're going to drop the heat down to just a simmer, and then we're going to cook this coffee for an additional 10 minutes with the cover on, and that's just going to be at a low simmer. So, see, go ahead and set the timer. And now we wait again. 10 minutes, lid on, low simmer. Okay, timer off, vent fan off, we're ready to go. So now we're just going to filter out the coffee. You'll notice that there's no coffee filter. I actually did this incorrectly the first couple of times I did coffee enemas. Apparently, according to the Gerson people, you're not supposed to use a filter because that filters out the good stuff, quote unquote. So you'll see I just have that wire mesh strainer. I'm going to give it a little bit of a stir. And then using that strainer, I'm just going to pour all of the coffee through there. The strainer will catch up the grounds. Now that we have the coffee prepared, now we can water it down a bit. So this is why I only use about half of the water or a little bit over half of the water to cook the coffee, because then I can use the remaining water to swish around in the pan, get all of those grounds out. And most importantly, this is bringing the temperature down. I simply do not have the patience and I do not have the time to cook all 32 ounces, have the 32 ounces of water up to a boil, and then wait around for an hour for that coffee to come back down to a reasonable temperature to put inside my body. Rather, I'm going to use the room temperature distilled water to bring the temperature back down to something more reasonable, and then it's much closer to a point where we can use it for the coffee enema. So in this case, looks like I got the 32 ounces of liquid there is right at about 140 something, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. And you can see we're cruising right at about 130, 133 degrees. So it's still far away from where we want to insert this into the body. We want that temperature to be right around 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but this is cool enough now that now we could start the prep in the bathroom. So you can lay down any sort of situation you want. Heck, you can get a beanbag for all I care. For me, what I do is I get 2 of our grossest, oldest towels. These are just dog towels, so we would use them when we're giving the dogs baths, for example. And I put those 2 towels down on the ground. Some people will use a yoga mat under their towels. You know, you do you, man. But I usually just make do with towels. And then you can see the edge of the tub is actually just perfect for giving me a little bit of a pillow. So I don't even need to bring a pillow in. Then I am equipped with peroxide, a little thing of coconut oil, and a little thing of dish soap. I have everything in a container outside the door there. And then there's the bucket and the hose that we're going to need. And that little S doohickey, which you're going to see what that's for momentarily. But you can see you have 2 ends. One end has the tip for insertion. The other end is going to go right over that nozzle. Now, if you get it on there loosey-goosey like that, guaranteed you're going to have a coffee shower momentarily. So you really want to get it on there and up over those like ridges or rings. That's where you want it. So you want that on securely so that the coffee doesn't leak out once you fill up the bucket. And then you can use that little S doohickey that they give you, and then that's how you can hang the bucket. The Gerson people say that you want the bucket about 2 feet off the ground. They say if you put it higher that it's going to flow too quickly, but you have this handy dandy hoozy jig to monitor the flow, and you could dictate how quickly the coffee goes. So I don't really see the problem with hanging it up. I actually put mine on the shower curtain, so it's about 7 feet in the air when I do it. Then I'm going to just use some peroxide. Some people don't use peroxide every time. I'm actually a little bit skittish about the germs up the butt idea, so I am going to go ahead and do a rinse first with some peroxide. And you can see I just put a bit in there, swish it around, and then what I'm doing is I'm getting nice and low in the tub so that when it comes squirting out the other end, I'm not getting peroxide all over tarnation. So once I crouch down, then I'm opening up the valve and I'm letting the peroxide out. After the peroxide rinse, typically I will do some sort of like distilled water rinse. Again, you really want to use distilled water or perhaps reverse osmosis water. You really want to make sure that there's nothing funky in the water that you're putting into your body. So you can see I just shook out the last little bit of peroxide there, hanging it up. And then I can put the peroxide away. I'm going to do a quick temperature check. Still a bit warm, but it should be fine. And then here's yet another jug of distilled water. And like I said, I'm just going to do a bit of a rinse for the bucket and the tubes. I maybe put a cup in there, give it a little bit of a swirl. And then same thing, once I get that in there, then I can open up the hose and I just let it squirt out into the tub. Next up, this is just a little bit of dish soap that I keep in my box with all of my enema goodies. Not a sentence I ever thought I would say. But I'm just putting, 2-3 drops of dish soap on my hands with a little bit of water, and then go ahead and clean off the tip that's going to be inserted into your body when you do the enema. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be sterile. It is going up your butt after all. But I think it is generally a good practice to just make sure that the tip that you're going to insert is reasonably clean. And then I'm just going to lay that on the clean towel there. Should be fine. Now it's time to go ahead and fill up the coffee. Take a lesson from my mistake. Pour this over the shower or over the sink. Otherwise, you might get some coffee splatter all over your nice bathroom, which is what I did the first time around. And you can see I'm pouring back and forth because, again, per the Gerson people, you want some of that sludge down at the bottom. So make sure that you get all of that nice sludge. And then I'm just going to hang up that bucket up nice and high. And now you can go ahead and open up the valve enough so that you see the coffee come all the way through. And then I usually try to give the tip a little bit of a shake so that I get any of the air bubbles out. Or, most of them out, certainly. And then that's all there is to it. And now you can either, oh yes, don't forget a little bit of coconut oil. That goes a long way. I take like the tiniest little pinch of coconut oil, rub it on the tip, and full disclosure, this would also be the point where I drop trow and put some of that on my anus as well. But this is YouTube, for God's sakes, we're not doing that. All right. Coconut oil, check. At that point, after I have lubed up the tip of the insertion thing, I'll wash my hands and then assume the position. So the way that you're supposed to do coffee enemas is you're supposed to sit on your right side, and that way the coffee can flow into the sigmoid colon and go where it needs to go. So you can see I'm going to lay on my right side, and then I, again, use kind of the shower or the tub edge as a pillow. My right hand is going to be approximately in that position, and that's the hand that I use to open and close the valve. And then the left hand is just holding that in place and inserting it. And then I look up, and you can see when the coffee is going all the way through the tube, and then that's when I know that I'm done. And now at this point, you're going to want to hold the coffee enema for as long as you can, ideally 15 minutes. And by this point, you're done inserting anything into your body. So I just put the hose in the tub. You can see there's still coffee in the one that I'm demoing with. And then you could do some hip bridges and lift up your buttocks, or you could do a bit of a tummy massage. And now we're going to get into the cleanup. So hooray for you, you have done a coffee enema, and now you have to clean out that bucket. So you don't want any creepy crawlies lingering in there. So first you could see that there's still some coffee sludge down at the bottom. So typically I'll just run through and get a bit of water in there first and just kind of rinse out the coffee. Then after the initial water rinse, I'm going to go ahead and get that little bottle of dish soap again, put a little bit of dish soap in the bucket, and then fill the bucket up with hot water from the shower again. And then I'm going to let some hot soapy water go all the way through. So I'm going to swish it around in the bucket, and I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing where I crouch down, I hang up the bucket, I crouch down, and I let the hot soapy water go all the way through the hose for a minute or so. And that way I'm cleaning every little bit of that hose, hopefully. And I almost always make too much of the soapy water, so I'm just going to dump the rest out. And now I'm going to do a couple of rinses with just hot water from the shower. So again, I'm just going to use the shower attachment, fill up the bucket with some hot water that's now minimally soapy, but still a bit soapy. Run that through the line, and then I'll usually do this 3 times or so until there's basically no more soap in the line or the bucket. And now for that peroxide rinse. I usually use a cup or so, maybe a little bit more. Give it a little bit of a swish. Adjust your microphone because you realized it was in a weird position. And then open up the clamp. Now is a good time to point out too, I don't know if I passed this point in the video, but at one point I didn't realize that the clamp was open when I put liquid up in the bucket and that it started to spray all over. So pro tip, make sure that you are bringing your awareness to whether or not the clamp is open. And then last little hurrah, I will use some of that dish soap again. 3-4 drops of dish soap, a little bit of water, and then go ahead and get that nice and soapy and bubbly. And then I'm going to rinse that off with the shower. And now everything should be pretty squeaky clean. I'm just rinsing out any leftover coffee that's in the shower. Also, good point to point out, another pro tip to learn from my mistakes, if you get the bright idea to use the toilet cover as a shelf to put your phone on there so that you can watch John Mulaney on Netflix on your phone, please make sure that the toilet seat lid is closed. I did not do that one time and my phone went for a bit of a swim. Now, you're going to want to detach the hose. Don't yank on it from the end. You need to use your nails or a tool and try to grip it from the very end. You're trying to get your nails kind of behind that piece of rubber or plastic or whatever it is. And it takes a little bit of finessing and focus, intense focus. But rest assured, you can get it off. If you pull from the end of the hose, you're going to stretch out and ruin the hose eventually. So you really want to use your nails and like get behind the thing. And then now that you have the hose detached, go ahead and shake out the bucket, make sure it's empty. And then I go ahead and give the whole hose apparatus a bit of a shake. And then I let it drip dry in the shower for a few minutes. Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, click the like button, and leave a comment down below with the videos that you would like to see me do next. Doing all of those really helps support the channel and support my efforts in making as many videos as possible for you guys. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.